takes a second. Hey, happy Friday. Thank you so much for being here. Today is really special because I have Keith Piscitello with us, and he is an amazing financial planner. He's got a string of credentials, and he is with Simply Sophisticated Wealth Planning. Welcome, Keith.
Thank you for having me, Betsy. Before we get started, I just have to give a quick disclosure, if you can bear with me for a second. Simply Sophisticated Wealth Planning in Chicago offers comprehensive financial planning services through Lincoln Financial Advisors Corporation. They're a broker-dealer and a member of SIPC, as well as a registered investment advisor. Simply Sophisticated Wealth Planning is not an affiliate of Lincoln Financial Advisors, and opinions are those of myself, Keith Piscitello, and not necessarily those of Lincoln Financial Advisors. Content and the discussion today is for informational purposes. Lincoln Financial Advisors and its representatives do not provide legal or tax advice, and it's not intended to be personalized advice for your specific situation to be relied on in any circumstance. We encourage you to consult a legal or tax advisor prior to making any tax-related investment and or insurance decisions. Thank you for letting me share that.
Sound advice. So tell us, who do you work with and what makes you special and how can you help?
I appreciate you asking that question, Betsy. Our practice works with a good percentage of our business comes from families of seniors who require a higher level of care. They've lost the potential to be independent for their own safety or because of health concerns, chronic, either debilitating diseases or just becoming frail as they get older. We work with those seniors and their adult children to help manage the financial aspects of that transition from independence to a caregiving situation. To put our clientele into perspective, most of them have done some level of planning by the time they've met with us with competent professionals, attorneys, insurance agents. They probably have an investment advisor that they've been working with. Maybe they've got a tax planner. And the question you may be asking is, if they have these competent professionals who provided some level of planning to this point, why would they want to engage our services?
Exactly.
And the answer to that is really coordination, or rather a lack of coordination with their existing planning and their desire to take that planning to another level. You see, when we work with clients, we don't look at things strictly from an investment perspective or from a legal perspective or from an insurance perspective, but we look at everything across the board. And this multidisciplinary process allows us to identify coordination gaps and missed financial planning opportunities that could be either robbing those individuals of potential growth or have excessive fees or just even mistakes in their documentation that haven't been addressed, missed incorrect beneficiary designations on their retirement plans or their life insurance, not having their trust work that has been prepared by their attorney to at some point in the past, not having that properly funded with their assets, so that when the time comes that senior passes, we want to make sure that everything is going to transfer as efficiently and carefree as possible. And there's a lot of stuff that happens, and we want to make sure that everybody's on board and knows exactly what's going to happen before we get there.
That is so well said. And I see that. Here's the scenario, I think. You're 50 or 45, you go to your estate planner, you plan an estate, you have your trust, you have your wills, and you leave it there. And, you're with your financial planner and they're checking in and they're making sure you're making money. And then you have your life insurance and your health insurance. But none of it is, and then you got your kids all out there with their own opinions. And I think maybe that is a big part of it too, because if you take all those things and you put them with you, then the kids aren't calling all these different people to try and figure out what we should do.
Absolutely. That's a great point. First of all, the planning that people do is more than just checking a box to say I've got it done. Because our lives are continually changing, they need to
Yes.
be reviewed and updated on a regular basis. Do you still want the person you named as the guardian for your children to be the guardian, 15 years from then?
You'll write that person.
If you've named, I was meeting with clients last week who had named the mother to be the agent under power of attorney for her if anything were to happen to her, and the mother now has Alzheimer's disease, and it's clearly not going to be the person she would want today to make those decisions if she couldn't make them herself. So going through those documents and just giving some clarity on what do we have in place, does it meet our needs, or is there change that need to be made? Because oftentimes, especially with seniors, the window of competency sometimes is closing. So we want to make sure that we can engage them, get their feedback, help understand what are their true wishes in terms of where they get care, how they get care, how their final, uh, uh,
Their
passing
death.
their estate should be taken care of. What values do they want to pass on to next generations? And that is important. The other part is oftentimes a lot of folks, especially as they get older, end up having investment strategies that don't make sense for where they're at right now. We've just finished with a 13, or we haven't finished with it necessarily yet, although it feels like it sometimes recently. We've just we're coming up on 13 years of a bull market. So if someone had a 50-50 balance in there, which is what their target allocation should be given their risk, and stocks went up relatively more than their bonds, they may find themselves looking at their portfolio, if they haven't done anything to rebalance it, where they could be at 80% invested in stocks and only 20% in bonds because the stocks have outperformed by such a large extent over such a period of time. So we do a risk assessment to try to find out what is it that you want your money to be doing, how much downside are you comfortable taking, which has become more important than ever before. People that don't get concerned about volatility if everything's going up, they only get concerned when things start to fall down. But we also want to make sure that what they've built can help serve them in their next chapter of their lives. Does it make sense to have things that are invested in a lot of bonds or in a lot of stocks that may be more volatile when their need right now is for ongoing income and to pay for their ongoing care or to pay for rent or whatever it may be? Um, the other thing that we find oftentimes when we sit down to meet with that older adult and their adult child is that they've got accounts open everywhere, which could be savings accounts, checking accounts, a CD at another bank, an IRA from a past employer, a 401k, other, and they had never taken a look at how all it fits together. But the other problem that we run into in those situations is it exposes them to potential financial fraud, where if you've got so many accounts out there to try to keep track of where everything's at and to monitor that nobody's is taking advantage of them is challenging at best. The other problem that it runs into is once that older adult passes away, once they die, the executor of the estate has to go to 17 different places to close out those accounts, consolidate those in the estate before they can be transferred out, which again takes time, takes money, takes energy. So if we can consolidate things, simplify things so the family understands how everything fits together, and they've got a quarterback who says, you know what, when we need care, here's the first place we're going to take the money from. Here's the most efficient, tax efficient place to take it from, secondly. And by the way, we're also going to make sure that everything matches what your risk tolerance is, your time horizon. Um, that gives them clarity. It gives them peace of mind. It gives them comfort, because it's a challenging time when you make the decision that the best case scenario for moms or dads, next chapter is to move them into a community where they can have good nutrition, where they can have socialization, where they can have activities planned, where they can have um, some safety as well. Our goal is to make sure that when they make that decision, that they understand it makes sense for them medically, socially, geographically, but also importantly, financially. The last thing we want to do is move mom and dad into a community, have them run out of money, and then have to move them again later down the road with limited options. So we make sure, think of what we do in many cases. Betsy, you're a realtor. When people buy a home, they have time to look at a couple communities, although the market's been kind of busy, but they can meet with a realtor to show them what might be a good fit for them. Oftentimes, though, they'll meet with a loan officer to figure out how much can I be pre-qualified for? What's the value of the home that I should be limiting myself to? There aren't many people who do that for seniors, where they can give them that peace of mind, almost a pre-qualification. Here's what you should be looking for. Here's, based on what you have in terms of income and assets, you should be looking to spend on a monthly basis. And if we do that, then we have confidence that your money will last as long as you need to, and this move can be the last one you make, and unless it's not a fit. But again, um, giving that financial peace of mind is key.
Well, to me, when you deal with seniors the way, and I do, and I deal with the adult children as well, you use the word quarterback. That's really what we are, that you're taking all those pieces and bundling them together in one place so that the family is dealing with you. You've got it figured out in a neat package and you explain it all, but they don't need to be running all over the place trying to hire this person and find that person, because that is very unmanageable, not manageable at all.
Mm-hmm. The other
So,
thing that we find often is, especially if it's an older adult, the attorney that may have drafted their documentation, who was their age, has now retired. They haven't updated it. They don't know who to get in touch with. So making sure that we have a team that's all focused on the same outcome for the loved one is important. So we we give it, I call it our 3C approach to planning. The first is we come up with creative solutions, maybe things that they haven't even thought of before. The second is we collaborate with their other professionals. We don't tell them they have to leave their attorney if they've got a good fit there and they like working with them. We'll work with them. If they have an insurance agent, if they have an investment professional, we don't require them to move their assets to us. We think that there's probably some benefits for doing that because we're going to see how everything fits, but they don't have to. So it's creative solutions, it's collaboration, and finally, we're the catalyst to make sure that the stuff that needs to get done gets done first. We give them those checklists. Here's your priority between now and when we meet again. We want you to do this, this, and this. When we meet then, we'll see to make sure that you've updated your trust, that you've reviewed your beneficiaries, that you've given us some cash flow to understand what your income is so we can move on to the next steps. We try to make it as simple and digestible as possible, and that works.
your
That's what people are
checklist,
looking for.
and I'm telling you, you're right. People think that they are doing this stuff. Oh yeah, I've got an attorney and I've got this and it's all set. They are not. I mean, most people are not that organized about it. They probably have a will and they have their trusts and they have these things, but they're not readily accessible. Because I just went through this with my husband. I said, okay, we got to get everything in one place so I know and you know where everything is. And so such good advice, and your checklist. Who out there has a checklist of what they're supposed to do. Only a person like you going to Keith, you have a checklist. They don't have that.
Understanding everything and how it all impacts is important. So we
That's
want to
it.
make sure that they know that someone's looking at the whole picture, not just with the blinders on it on the one area of planning that maybe they need to do.
That's right. And those, I'm going to go back to checklists because those are developed over years of experience and problems that have arisen, that you have this checklist to make sure that things the average person is not even thinking about does not occur. So that's really
Our mission also is to make sure that people understand why they're doing what they're doing and they understand what we're talking about. So the reason the name of the practice is Simply Sophisticated Wealth Planning is we want to make sure it's simple, digestible, and understandable. I do a lot of work in grade schools and middle schools and high schools, teaching financial literacy, entrepreneurship, and work readiness classes for kids through Junior Achievement of Chicago. And I use that experience to make sure that the information I'm providing a third grader is similar to the way I'm presenting information to someone who's older, who maybe this is the first time that maybe they're a widow, they've never had to deal with the finances before. We want to make sure that they understand why we're doing what we're doing and keep it as simple, but yet as sophisticated as that they need.
That's awesome. That's really because we do live in a very complicated world. It isn't just you have a little checking account, you have a little this. There's rules and regulations and for everything, and that's great that you make it simple for people. We got too much going on in our brains all the time.
There's more information than there's ever been. People are looking for someone to work through the information and give them advice that's to their situation.
Right. Clear out all that noise. There's just way too much.
Mm-hmm.
So finally, just anything with the pandemic that people should be, anything special or anything that people.
The pandemic and the COVID has changed a lot of businesses. For us, in many ways, it's been good in that we do a lot of our meetings virtually, just like we're doing right now, where you can be in the comfort of your own home. We can share our screens and let you see what we're talking about and give you, that peace of mind. But we still can meet in person as well. Most of our clients are in the Chicago area, and we're happy to meet with them because, especially with that older generation, they're not necessarily computer savvy. They want to make sure they can look the person in the eye, shake their hand, and know who they're dealing with. And that really is comforting to them. So we will accommodate whatever's best for the folks we're being introduced to.
That's great. That's great. Keith, you have been amazing and such good advice. And we have your information is on my website. It's on Facebook. It is on YouTube. So anybody that needs Keith can get a hold of me or get a hold of Keith. And I want to thank you again for sharing your knowledge with us.
This has been my pleasure. Thank you very much, Betsy.
Thanks. Everybody have a great weekend.
You too. Take care.